Hey guys, it's Quinn here, and I'm going to be doing part 3 of today's. We're still reading Bearstone of Will Hobbs Bearstone, so let's just start reading and continue where we left on. Chapter 9. At first light, Walter was usually in cooking sausage and eggs. Chloe waited a while for him in the kitchen, then took a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter outside. It was easy to put off the scene in the old man. Several hours later, Walter went out of the house. Clyde was surprised to see he had to shave his beard off. "Hayes is in the barn, Clyde," he announced cheerfully. "Lucky you didn't get rained on once you're into July. Today's the first you're pressing your luck." Clyde didn't know what to say. The old man was waiting like nothing to happen. "Wouldn't you mind a bit if it rained any time now?" Walter continued. "When you have to irrigate so much, it better be start the water back in today. The field's drying up bad. How about you? Got anything in mind? Maybe you'd like to take that to Verone. Maybe some more post, I guess." Chloe mumbled. Walter hesitated. "Fine," he said uncertainly. "That's just fine." Chloe trudged across the field with a saw and a gas can. He left behind the pan of oil. Walter wanted to mix with the gas. It was another cloudless day. The last of the night's lingering cool air was burning up as he angled through the hay stubble toward the hillside. Before he climbed, he took a good look at his fence posts, marching stout and straight all the way to the peach orchard. It was a strange feeling. They looked different. They didn't make him feel proud or good. They weren't his anymore. He'd forgotten to bring along any drinking water. Already he was thirsty, and the sun was blazing. His head was pounding. Why was he still there? He's expected to see on his way back to Durango. He was been sent back to work with nothing, as if nothing had happened. He had to get out of the sun. He veered away from the hillside and followed the post down to the orchard. He dropped a saw in the grass at the base of a big boulder and looked at the trees. He could lie there all day. He thought ever since he'd come to old man, there'd never been seen the time to look at the world this way that he liked. Suddenly the bear was back in the thoughts, and he could see it all happening. Men running hard to keep up their yapping dogs. The bear, exhausted and desperate with no place to hide, he hated the outfitter that ran him with all his heart. His first brought him back to the orchard. He swallowed hard and bitterly. The whole orchard was exploding with growth. The countless rock-hard peaches grew larger by the day. He's been checking on them since the first day he came to the farm. He admired them, but now he hated them. These thriving trees with Walter's withered lung. Green leaves were so preserved with his grandmother's it made him sick. Hers were pitiful. He spat, but nothing came out. He had a bitter taste in his mouth, like poison. His grandmother's peaches were rare and beautiful only of the way he used to see them, as they really were. The old man's trees could have all the water they wanted, while his grandmother's with his misshapen trunks and stunted yellow leaves stood here and there against the sun, depending on the rain. Sometimes the rains didn't come at all, and the peaches shriveled, and the trees there was no moisture to suck out of them. All at once he heard dogs barking and men calling. The outfitter and his bear hunters had returned. Chloe ran up the road toward the house, where the man has dismounted, where the shelling off to kill to water. Everyone talked once, except a weird-haired man who was acting like it in all day's work. A bear was headed outside of the nervous horse. It wasn't as big as Chloe would have thought. It looked about like a big black dog. The old man was going to let his friend butcher it right here and hang up in one of his sheds. As if he were invisible, he walked around the precious, supine hunters with him. Taking no notice of him, he approached the bear and stared at it. The bear nearly bit its tongue in two. Its mouth was choked in clotted blood. The fly walked on one of its eyes, recounting the hunt the men poked fun at each other. The one who asked the old man about the wind, was especially happy. He was the one who shot it. Bearskin for a din, he said proudly. Plenty of good sausage too, and some for water here. The red-haired man in the sappy said in his raspy voice. Why don't make sausage I'll feed to my dogs? Suddenly Chloe remembered all the sausage he had eaten at the old man's table. It almost made him wretched to think it might be and probably was bear meat he'd been eating all his mornings. He backed up the clearing in front of the house, turned and ran back towards the peach orchard. The terrible revenge was taking shape in his mind. Chloe snatched up his saw from the tall grass at the base of the boulder. He filled it with gas, pink instead of its usual purple, the way it looked like the oil added. Right now he didn't care about how Walter wanted it. The old man was just fussy. He wouldn't even drive his truck without checking the oil first. Everything Walter didn't have to be in neat lines, like his windows and his fences. Everything had to be so clean, like the right rug, and his parlor, and his tractors, and everything he had to be in his place in the house. The sheds and the barn, he grabbed up the saw and yanked the whole cord. With his saw in the midair, as Walter had advised him never to do, the engine fired immediately and his gun until it screamed. Cloyd wondered why he liked Walter in the first place, the fussy old white man, who had 1,000 times more than he needed and still had someone else to do his work for him, so maybe he could more. Maybe he worked the old man because the finding of the Bearstone the first day was easy enough to see now. There was no connection between the good look and the total and the old man. Couldn't remember how Walter had left the red-haired man and the other bear hunters when they first arrived, or what that with bear hunters should be the old man's secret name, he thought bitterly. He cut through the skin of a nearest tree whence the wood grew. The saw beads of moisture were forming along the edges of the fresh wound. For one of the next he ran with saw roaring in full throttle, and he cut each in the 22 peach trees, and most of the way through each time of his saw teeth bit into the thin dark. He hollered with the hurt if he failed to saw himself. He didn't want to cut them down, but he wanted him to die slowly. Before he died, the leaves would yellow and peach shrivel, and it would look just like his grandmother's peaches. Even now, he knew he was going to be in big trouble, but that made him easier. He was only getting started. In time when the adult, he was going back to Eagling. His mind racing in his throat, and dry seemed jammed with a wad of wool. Clyde stumbled out of the orchard with a heavy saw when his 57 hosts came out of the interview, all the standing straight and lined up so perfectly. He pulled up for breath and caught himself admiring him. What was the fence really for? To keep an old man for crossing a field? It was stupid reason to have worked so hard. At White Mesa, he went to the goats and whether he wanted out of the UTs, but the fences are claimed of a Mesa of their own. The animals went their rows feed, and there was no fences at all until some white men chained to the trees about river fruits dropped them into arroyos, and the fence on the over end of a mess for beans. Cloyd tried to shoulder against the first post. It wouldn't budge. He had to set them deep, wedging rocks around the posts and packing them with the clay soil. They set up like a concrete. Why should Walter be so concerned about some people hunting deer and elk on his ranch, while he thought it was fine for others to hunt bears? He thought he was a fool to have worked for old man. The juniper post wouldn't rot in 200 years, but he didn't want them here at all. The field looked better without him. The saw did not want to start. After dozens of attempts, Clyde made it erratically. but cut it out as soon as he tried to throttle. Eventually, caught at the throw throttle. As he discovered it, it would run if he didn't went up even a little bit. He walked along with the line and saving down the post and thinking about people he didn't like. One post for a reading teacher who tried to make him read out loud. One for the speech teacher who always tried to make him get up in front of the class, and one for a nervous principal who was always saying, "Well, I guess I'll just have to use the board on you." One for each bear hunters, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 16. For the Walter and his friend, the red-haired man. Half of the posts were married when the saw began to kill as soon as it bit in the wood. They didn't want to fire at all. Cole checked the gas with the hiss and his opened the cap, the boring hot. Most of it escaped. Maybe the saw didn't need oil. Mix it with the gas, but who cared? The saw was too hot, it was going to start, but probably he ruined it by leaving out the oil. He felt like he was going to faint. He had to get out of the sun. He threw his saw down and walked off. He wanted the irrigation ditch at the end of the field. Even though the water ran cool and clear, he didn't think to drink any. He started up the mountainside toward the sandstone outcrop where he found the blue stone. On his way up, Cloyd saw the trucks and horses' trailers leave. Then he saw the old man walk down to the peach orchard. He turned the wood flyer higher. When he reached to the top of the cliffs, when he walked out, he's not so smooth. And as he expected to be, the sight of a distant sphinx did nothing to lift him out of his despair, drowning him inside. Usually after he did something he knew was going to bring trouble, he thought in the way revenge. The old man was different. He never felt this awful in his life. He never liked anybody this much, unless he liked Walter. Somebody he felt more alone than ever before, ever more than his first days at Durango after the tribe has been to the Ingling. This wasn't the same as getting into trouble with the teachers or the principal with his house mother. Those people were making him do things that he didn't want to do. It was different with the old man. Once he really wanted to work for Walter. It was good then. Now everything was spoiled. He had spoiled it. His first grew so bad he could not swallow, but he was good at enduring pain. No one ever could take that away from him. Maybe he wouldn't run away, but he would stand up the old man for punishment. The way he did with the principal, he'd then go home and hide in the canyons. Walter would take him back to the Ingling, but he wouldn't stay for long. No one could find him in the canyons. Chapter 10. It was dark, and Clyde was off the mountain as he reached the latch of the front door. The old man stepped out of the shadows. Trembling with rage, he caught the boy with his shoulders with unnatural strength and shook him back and forth against the door. "What the hell is the matter with you, anyway?" he roared. Clyde said nothing to let himself be shaken. He spent his own anger, had enough left to counter the enormity of the old man's wrath. Walter put his livid face against Clyde's, where the boy's eyes couldn't avoid this. "Who the hell are you come to here and ruin our peaches? We know damn well those trees meant to me will speak to me." Clyde turned his head aside and looked at the ground. "Give me that little blue rock you keep in your pocket," Walter commanded. Clyde's mouth turned sharply down at the corners. "What rock?" he grunted. Walter extended his hand and pulled him up. "Give it to me, Clyde. I wasn't born yesterday. I seen you more than once sneaking it in and out of your hand. Come on, give it." There was nothing else to be done. He could see only the old man. He heaved a sigh and fetched out of his pocket. Walter took the stone and closed his fist on it. "You care about this little rock, eh? You won't say. I think you do. Come on, I want to teach you something." Walter stepped out of his machine shop with a boy and towel, looked on a bear bulb suspended at the rafters, and set the blue stone on his anvil. Then he reached for the sledgehammer and dose out of your own medicine. The old man raged, holding the sledgehammer high over his head. Clyde's heart turned to lead. He waited passively for his punishment. As Walter focused on his target, he paused with the hammer in the matter and craned his neck in a bad way. "What the hell is that thing?" he demanded. "A bear," the boy answered quietly. "A bear?" The old man took it in his hand and explained it to close. Clyde edged forward. "You care about this thing quite a bit, don't you?" Clyde wouldn't say. He backed up and looked at the ground. "Oh, to hell with it," Walter stormed. "Here, keep it." When Clyde didn't respond, Walter reached over and shoved it in his pocket. Go get your stuff. I just want to get the hell rid out of you." It was late at night as a pickup wound slowly through the foothills on its way to Durango. Each of them kept silent and preoccupied with its own regrets. Just after they passed through the little town of Bayfield, the headlights illuminated a rabbit darting across the highway. Walter and Clyde both went to the thump under the wheels. In their broodings, that thump sounded like a judgment. Each was plunged deeper in remorse. 15 more than slow and silent miles, and they reached Durango. Walter stopped at a red light, staying down in the main blinking yellows. At this hour, Durango was getting a ghost town. It seemed like there were only the two of them in the world. I couldn't miss him. Walter said it with a sigh. "Miss who?" Clyde asked quickly. Somehow he was going eager to talk with the old man. "Oh, that darned rabbit back there." He seemed bound and determined. "It wasn't your fault." "I suppose not," Walter said slowly. "Just none of them things will show me your way to England." Clyde gave directions, and then the old man gave the truck down and crept toward the group home. They both knew they had only a few minutes left. "I wonder if you mind if I look at the turquoise piece of yours once more," Walter said. The old man turned it over, and his fingers eyed it and rubbed it thoughtfully. But he said nothing as he drove down to the empty streets. "Turn here," Clyde said. Walter sighed. It's a sure enough bear," he said. Couldn't even be a grizzly for the shape of it." "I went to the bear dance once down at the reservation," he began. They then stopped talking. A revelation was forgetting himself in his mind. At last he said, "You cut those peaches right after those fellows came in their bear hunt, isn't that right?" Clyde grimaced. Walter scratched behind his ear, and he handed the stone back. "Well, that helps some. It sure does. Here it is," Clyde said, pointing the house with his lips. Walter slowed to the stop, eyes in the group home. It wasn't that unexpected. You can tell they had apart from all the other tract homes in his neighborhood. He drove on another block before he stopped. For a long time he said nothing. He took out his cap and rapped his bald head with his fingers, and shaking his head a little. "Pigs might fly, but unlikely birds." "What's that mean?" "Just an old saying," he replied with a faint smile. "I never did know exactly. But I always liked the sound of it." Clyde, "Susan told me once you rather more than anything you just go home. Is that right?" Clyde shrugged guardedly. "Well, they wouldn't let me." "I suppose not." Walter agreed as he slipped the truck into gear and drove off. "What are you doing?" Clyde mumbled. "Taking you home." "How come?" "You ain't gonna do anything good here at this Eagle Wing, are you?" "They won't let you." "I don't see nobody," Walter said gruffly. "They'll come and get me." "I'll wait a week before I tell Susan." "You'll have some time at home, whatever happens." They left Durango behind the wet-headed lesson to step grade. Clyde barely thought he was about to go home, but he was so astonished, puzzled. He didn't know what to make of this old man. He liked him and he hated him, and now he didn't know what to think. Walter was taking him home. After a few miles he passed, and there was them take him down to the western side of the mountains. He asked again, "How come you're doing this? Maybe it'll help you to get the bee out of the bonnet," the old man said coldly. Chloe didn't want to have to ask him, but what they meant. The old man was in a strange mood. Better to keep quiet. He thought about the horse. He wished there had been a chance to see Blue Boy before he left. The sun was rising over the high desert as he measured like Mesa and the clear, this thin air Clay took the windmarks he grown up with. He almost wished he could share them with Walter, but they hadn't really made a peace. To the north, Blue Mountain, the sacred one, still wearing the patch of snow. To the east, Mesa, the form of sleeping Ut Young, lying on his back with arms folded across his chest, but not yet ready to vanquish his enemies. To the south, the clothing, the white cliffs of the San Juan, as it flowed through bluff, and beyond them the bare redlands and the Navajos, with the towers of Mountain Valley beginning to appear in the early light. To the west, the wooded slope of the Cedar Mesa falling from the bear's ears to the river, gouged by the bottomless red-walled canyons and remote canyons was he would hide. He decided there in a slick rock country. He quivered wild and free as they drove to the south of the blending of the windy Mesa. Chloe searched for something to say thank you to the old man. There was something well up inside him that he never felt before, but he had to be expressed. Soon he was pointing out the nondescript government house. That was his grandmother's, the one with a summer ramada with cottonwood and branches on one side, the scraggly peach trees on his other that he was hanging by a truck, his duffel bag in his hand. The old man was saying, "Good luck." Chloe, what's don't say goodbye with no hard feelings. Chloe nodded. It was all happening too fast, with feelings were too deep to be reached. They found no words at all, only waved slightly as the old man turned the truck around the driveway. The pickup was so small in the distance by the time he realized that he lost something of priceless value. He waved forlornly, then fiercely as a truck vanquished. With the suddenness of the cloudburst in the desert, tears rained down his face. He stumbled around behind the house to the little shed in Coro to check in on the goats. They were all gone. There was no fresh stirring there. Either after smoke started to come from the chimney pipe. He went in. His grandmother looked up at the fry bread and dough she was kneading and gave a short cry. The UT woman in the old style. She was dark, earthly, and large, and mainstay of her diet being fried bread. In her green velveteen blouse and voluminous red skirt in the way. She knotted her long hair and wrapped it in bright yarn. She was reflecting the fluence in nearby Navajos, and no one asked her for a questions. She made a joke about his ribs, shelling through his t-shirt and has opened a can of a fruit cocktail. It was something for him to start a while. She cooked the fry pan oil. She had a boiling in the cook stove. She had people in her life. Lavished affection of them, rarely asked anything, and never tried to control whether they came or went. They squeezed honey under a fry bed. Chloe wanted to talk. He's spoken to no EUT in the last year as a boy from Colorado reservation no longer knew the language. Right away he found himself telling her about water, how they worked together, how there was a river flowing right through his farm. "Good," she said. "I knew you would like it in Colorado." He told her about the high mountains, how someday he would like to go there and climb the highest peak he could find. Wouldn't that be something? She said, her eyes reflecting the vision. This man you worked for, he lived in a good way. "He's the best man I ever knew." Clyde heard himself saying, "He's older than you. His wife died. He's all alone." Suddenly he knew he had desire to hide out in the canyons, but what was he to do? He talked about his sister, who was boarding school in Salt Lake City she had visited, and his grandmother said he had reported everything was fine. "I'll go to the bunny on Saturday, gets a lot of groceries, so we can put them back on your ribs. Fruit sometimes." She knew he stopped often enough, she walked away, all the way. Quite saw how could save her to the 10 miles into Blanding. 10 miles back, he realized he made a decision. "Oh, I can't stay long," he said. "I have to leave tomorrow." His grandmother's eyebrows rose. "Oh, Walter needs me. We have a lot of work to do." "Well, that's good. I'm glad you came to see me. How are you traveling?" Chloe gave the hitchhiking sign with his thumb. "I have to go now," she said. "I have a job. There is a daycare center here now. I cook for them. I had to sell the goats when there was nobody to take care of them. Maybe someday we'll get them back." She paused at the door, living a good way. She said parting as she always did. Chloe decided to leave right away. His grandmother would understand. Would the old man take him back? Chapter 11. When Walter got home for Utah, he went directly to his bed in his dirty overalls. He was exhausted, unshaven, no sleep, nothing to eat, as Abe driving Utah in the bag. He's been wanting himself to go to the dogs and didn't care right now. He should be irrigating the field. The grass would burn up the heat before long if he didn't. He didn't care. He wanted himself to sink to sleep like a heavy stone to plug into a well. When he woke up, he was hungry. Intent on the drowning himself in the sentiment, he went downstairs to the basement to fetch a jar of peaches. He sat on a crate for a long time as a sunken widow, a minute less and less light. He brooded on the 2 dozen or so jars of peaches left on the shelf, her special Missouri peaches. From those seedlings she brought along to Colorado. He told her that peaches would make it here, but she insisted, and there'd never been a time he'd gone, she insisted, downstairs for peaches that he hadn't remembered how it all happened. Walter studied the crack that had appeared in his length of the concrete basement wall just after his wife died. He got up and looked at it across the room and from the corner. Where he eyeballed the width of the wall, he feared he saw, the foundation bulging in more than ever. As he said many times before, how long any of the work he had to be done to pump the wall. Digging, pouring, timbering. He had the materials, the tools, the know-how, everything but the desire. He didn't care anymore about much of anything. He had for a while, when the boy was with him, they were working together and putting farm back into order. To what purpose? He wondered. He tried to make it like it was before, and when the wife was alive, when the two of them and the farm were all one on the surface, when he and Clyde had seceded. This farm isn't land and fence posts and hay in the barn. As his wife always said, a farm is a home. He felt the boy word he had the last chance to give him home. He'd give him the only work, the work's sake can't keep a soul going. Walter told himself that's like the pounding songs of a prison yard. It's not the work that's awful, it's lack of a purpose. She was gone. He could quit working the farm now himself. Has never been a farmer. He was a miner. He'd taken up farming for her, and gladly. They had all the good years making and living on a farm. Now he could quit and lie down to rest. The next morning, Walter got up late and wandered outside to check the horses. He had plenty of plaster and would be able to drink through the river, but there was no telling what one might turn into a rag vermin hole, get itself torn up in a barbed wire. He felt bad he saw the blue roan. He was never going to look at that horse again without thinking of that boy. On the way back, he walked the irrigation ditch to see if the beaver hadn't moved in and stared at it. Damn it up. He sat down on the ditch bank with all the hay fields sloping away in front of him and tried to think of how he thought to get taken care of properly. Only one choice remained. Really, he just been putting it off. He picked the best man could enlist in second cutting of him. There were always industrious fellows around type to raise more cows. Sorry, I'm written wrong. Then they. Sorry, I can't. I need some glasses. I can't see. They had away into a sport. They had families to see, mortgages to pay off. He turned down plenty of requests. As they seen him getting older, he didn't really have to work anymore. His farm has been paid for. Years ago, he didn't need much income to live the way he did. He always put some seasons by. Yet in city, if small income from the missing mining claimed his life, has finally convinced him to sell one of the near more monarchs past. She wanted him to sell the part of the less, but he was so mad about keeping it. She finally gave out. She quit badgering him about his pack horses and mining equipment. It's a social announcement that is a year or two that might be reprobate in his mind. So many years has gone by. She knew she was going to hang on to a dream that then when he was young, and there wasn't any harm in it. It was pleasant to sit in the ditch bank in morning sun and imagine he was sitting in his mind, sitting on the ore dump in a Swellside Creek, rushing by the peaks all around the grass green, in the wildflowers all the bloom inside the mine, not far at all where he left up the tunneling. Waited at the heart of the mountain, a seeker plays a marvelous Luke made millions of years before the lows of the earth, a room having no doors and furniture, and draperies of fantastic shapes of glistening crystal lying gold. Walter looked up to see a figure stumbling towards him out in dime peach trees, and through the salt of fence posts lying at 6s and 7s down to the low end of the farm. The figure was struggling with the awkward burden. The old man squinted a better look. In a few moments, in his everlasting amazement, he made a white t-shirt and a jeans, a duffel bag with shiny black hair, and a brown face of the boy. But he stood up meekly, lifted his cap, running his trembling hand over and over his skull. "You come back, Maud," he said quietly. "You come back." Then he wanted to meet the boy. He stood face to face in the middle of the field. "I want to try again," Clyde said, looking away. Walter shook his head in wonder. "Please, I'll do it better," the boy pleaded, thinking he's been turned down. "My goodness, Clyde, of course you can. Maybe I can do better too." The boy pointed towards the orchard with his lips. "Sorry about the trees. I seen you are. Both of us was hurt so bad. Like, to think through that hurt that gets over makes stronger. Now let's get you taken care of. You look like a bit something that can't spit out." Clyde smiled wearily as they walked down to the house, and they ate some sandwiches, went upstairs to the bed, and when he woke up, Walter in his clothes, clean and dry for him, asked to work what she did do next. Walter explained that he was wheezing out of the farm. He wouldn't be working anymore. "I've been thinking of the stores today, and Clyde didn't have much time to left in my life. I'm old enough. I ought to be do what I want. I really want to farm it good at me. But now it's time to quit. I ain't a mule turning grist. What I'm trying to say, do you remember how I've got the mind of that country? The pride of the West. That's right. Remember how I said I'm going to open it someday? I've been saying that for years. Well, now I figure now it's the time. I need you to help getting up there. Of course, if I remember right, you're always asking about the mountains. I think I might do us both of the world to get up into the high country. How does that see you, Clyde? Will we take care of the horses? Of course. No roads in here. We'll have to pack in everything. Chloe beamed. Can I ride Blue Boy? You bet. I'll ride that sorrel maze. Where can we go? It might take a couple of 3 weeks to wheeze out of the farm, get everything ready, and tie up all those ends. Tomorrow's the 4th of July, so that still leaves us a good while out there before you have to be back in school. But before we get too serious about anything, let's take a day off. And they got a rodeo up in Piscosa in the fourth every year, thinking you'd really enjoyed it. You're about to do for a payday. Maybe you could spend tons of your earnings, and I'll get a chance to get a hot mineral bath when they got there. Always wonders for my bones. Clyde spent the afternoon riding Boy Boy up the river and telling him to the news and sun about the mountains over and over and over. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna save it for part four, like maybe tomorrow, or yeah, actually tomorrow. So I'll see you guys later, and peace.